thank you so much for joining me and agreeing to like have a chat and things like that. I was very rude the other day. I interviewed David Trowbridge Ellis, who has license to queer. First thing I said to him is, I like to chat to people who are vaguely interesting. And he was like, oh, I'm vaguely interesting, am I? So I'm going to try and do better this time.
Hey, I mean, it's a fair assumption. I think we could just say that and then, shoot low, and then if anything better happens, I guess we win.
Absolutely, low expectations. That's what that's the secret to success. So I was really excited to chat to you. Occasionally I like to do these little video chats and with people who like I find interesting. And you like appeared on the Bond scene in the Bond community and like just instantly like I dug what you were doing. It was you had like a real. I come from like an advertising background, so I was going to say you have a really strong brand, but also doing stuff with the shooting and just the sartorial choices you make. I dig with like the barber jacket, especially when you've got your Jeep in the background and the barber jacket.
Oh yeah,
and then so
that
we
was
got, yeah, so we got chatting, and I was like, "You're an interesting guy, so I would like to chat to you." And I've just been going on for 5 minutes, not giving you a chance to speak. But so Caleb, tell me about yourself. Who is Caleb Daniels?
yeah. So you kind of gave a brief, very generous overview there. I have the reason why the channel started and all that. I've been working in firearms now. This is year 7, year 007. The golden year, I guess. Downhill from here, I suppose. But it's been great. Since I was 17, been working in the industry. So retail sales, class training, range. I mean, it's been a lot of fun, and I grew up in that world as well, and I grew up a giant Bond fan. So the account kind of came from those two things existing and coexisting with everything I was doing, and really wanting to join the discussion, I guess. So I'm a giant nerd who enjoys Bond guns and a little bit of Bond looks here and there, and kind of just blending them together.
I mean, that's so interesting that because what I love about James Bond as a thing is there's such a broad spectrum of people who are into it. But it's like, how did you get into James Bond? Tell me your James Bond like beginnings.
Yeah, so when they did the super, or like the Ultimate Edition, that's what they call it, the Ultimate Edition DVD sets, and they were completely out of order. They made no sense as to how they were packaging them. I got a 4-pack of those when I was maybe like 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, from my grandfather, and it was the weirdest combination when you look back on it. I think it was like Diamonds Are Forever, Goldfinger, From Russia with Love, and like Thunderball maybe. So I remember even back then like watching those and going, why does Sean Connery have those dark eyebrows? Why does he look like he aged a decade in the span of a movie? That one always sat back in like an odd duck situation, but I loved it. It's a guilty pleasure still because of that. So I got into the movies because of that, and then I kind of grew up in the renaissance of like the Bond video games too. So I'm not GoldenEye. I'm not that generation. I was 6 months old when Tomorrow Never Dies hit theaters. So the GoldenEye N64, not my scene at all. I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't grow up with that, right? It was like Nightfire and the From Russia with Love game that Sean Connery did.
You're actually speaking my language, I have to admit. When I first moved to America, my flatmate had a GameCube, and he had like Agent Under Fire and then Nightfire, and Nightfire was the one I loved. So like, yeah.
Yeah, Nightfire was multiplayer. Awesome.
And From Russia with Love on the PlayStation 2, I loved that one. I would play that one for hours.
Yeah, they're phenomenal games, and that actually got like my siblings into it. And my next youngest brother is only 2.5 years younger than me. Said to me like last week, he's like, it's cool what you're doing and all, but I just don't get like the Bond thing. Like I just don't get it. Like I never understood it. But growing up, even though he didn't get it, he played those games and he loved them. So that was kind of a cool way to connect, kind of bridge that gap too, since the bridge never really clicked in his mind as to what made it special outside of that. But yeah, I have so many great memories of playing Nightfire and stuff. I'm actually I tried to refurbish PlayStation 2, didn't work. Found another one my uncle had that's in pristine order. So once I get this living room finished setting up, there'll be a PlayStation 2 and Nightfire. I've got a brand new disc, and I just refurbished my From Russia with Love so I can break those out and enjoy them.
That is awesome. My son is really into retro Nintendo, so he got a GameCube, and he got was it Nightfire? Maybe it's the one before Nightfire. I can't remember the. No, it is Nightfire, but it's like, yeah, I'm sitting there playing it the nostalgia is fantastic. Okay, so you moved on from the video games. What resonates with you about James Bond? Because it's so interesting to talk to people about what it is about James Bond that gets them. It's like, for me, I came from kind of like the same background as James Bond, like the upper middle class kind of thing, growing around wearing a barber jacket, messing around with horses and things. But it was the way James Bond was like such a solitary person that always resonated with me so strongly. What is it about James Bond that like resonates with you?
Yeah, I think it's what you said there, that extent where it's I think the Sean Connery quote that I always like to fall back on is you never had to work so hard at making everything look easy. So it's just the calm and the cool and the collectiveness that he brings into everything that he does, and it's the capability that comes with that too, right? It's not like he's earning or proving; he just exists in that field and that plane, and he just makes it work. He does a really great job with it because it's his world. You're just existing within it, and so there's a level of confidence that exists with that, and there's a level of intrigue that exists with that as well. I mean, like the gadgets and the guns and the cars, and you want to be in that world. And so bringing it into your daily life is such an interesting thing to do. I also grew up really fascinated. Everyone always jokes that you've hit your 40s when you read like books about submarines or World War II or whatever. I saw that Geico ad and I felt personally like age 12. So, I've always been teased that I was like 40 at age 12. And I guess Geico's coming after me and proving that point. So, because I have copies of books about like the Vietnam era and World War II that the corners are just gone, because I'd sit in like a deer stand or at school and just thumb the pages and just work them down while reading them over and over and over and over again. Every single page has a dog ear on it from where it was folded over, that kind of thing. So when I was maybe like 13 or 14, I picked up a copy of Moonraker. It was the least scandalous cover of all the redone Penguin books. It was one I was allowed to take home. And it's still my favorite book to this day, because again, like the scene with the blades and all that, it connects back to that world. And that world has always fascinated me, like the 40s and 50s and, early Cold War, where you really knew who the bad guys were and you really knew who the good guys were. It's that part of history that is this interesting bubble in the 20th century that everything kind of just falls back into in terms of like unique nostalgia. And I think that's where Bond exists phenomenally. And that's really, since I was already interested in that world, finding a character that existed so powerfully within it and resonated, like the character of Drax and stuff like that, really just does a phenomenal job. And it made me so excited to keep getting involved with it. So the spiral started with the movies and the video games, and then I started reading the books, and it was all over.
No, I love that. It's funny, for me it was always like the warplanes of World War II, but I was exactly the same. I had like gazillions of books on World War II planes, and so it's kind of interesting that there's like that same overlap. And yeah, one of the things that really impressed me when I was looking at your Instagram feed was you had like a bunch of photos at the station in Kansas City, I think, where you had the whole like with love aesthetic going, and you like nailed it, like unbelievably nailed it. So like, I mean, doing stuff like that, tell me, how did that even happen? Who took the photos? They weren't selfies.
Most of the photos are me. I just put the phone on a timer.
Really?
So I worked downtown for 9 months, and when I did, I was 3 blocks from the World War I memorial. So I could park there for free, and Liberty Memorial looks down over Liberty Hill, and it looks down on the Union Station. So over my hour lunch break, I would park at Liberty, take me about 4 minutes to get there. I'd walk the memorial, I'd walk down the hill, go into Union Station, walk around. I just walked the hour just to kind of exercise and enjoy the city. And so it was hard not to take pictures there, because it was just such a unique space. And it's my favorite place in Kansas City. That railing I took photos at consistently. That's actually right where I proposed. That's where I got engaged, actually. It's on the 3rd story of Union Station. It's Emma's favorite place too, because at Christmas they go all out on decorations. So the 3rd floor balcony is only like 6 feet wide, and it overlooks everything, and it's really private for what's a very, very public building. Actually, the night I proposed, we were walking around the bottom area, and she kind of looked at me and she's like, "I could not imagine getting engaged here with all these people." Like, I'm like, fingering the ring in my hand, making sure I don't lose the bloody thing. And I'm like, all right, well, we're committed. We're doing it. We're going upstairs. This is happening. There are pieces of motion that I can't take away.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So, okay, so tell me, I mean, that's the other thing. This is not like, there's a weird American expression about blowing smoke up someone's ass. So I'm not blowing smoke up your ass when I say, to a certain extent, you like exude the James Bond lifestyle because you're quite young. You're 23, right?
Yeah, 23, almost 24, into July. It's birthday month.
But you kind of have what we say in England. You kind of have your shit together, which I have to admit, when I was 23, I didn't. So I mean, that's one of the things about like the whole James Bond lifestyle that you kind of exude, is the fact that you seem to have your stuff together. You got a plan and things. Like, tell me about your career in firearms, because you've been doing it for 7 years. 7 years. That means you were doing it before you like turned of age and things.
Yeah, high school, man. I was 17 years old when I got hired. So the store opened. Frontier Justice is where I work and where I've worked mostly. Even when I was working elsewhere for the past 9 months when I was downtown, I was still writing blogs and things for the website for Frontier. So, yeah, what's really cool about it, it opened 2 months or a month before I got hired. So I was the first hiring cycle with the company. We opened up our first location. They had the grand opening, and then they started hiring. I was 17. My neighbor, two of like my best friends, their mom actually ended up, just happy coincidence, was head of HR, and they were looking to hire people. And she's like, hey, you're kind of into this world. Would you be interested in like maybe applying for a job? And so I did. And if you think I look young now, imagine me at 17. The question that stuck with me the most at the interview was, the firearms community is a very old community. Like, there's a lot of older people within it. Your Vietnam era veterans, your boomers, right? Like that generation is a huge part of this community. A lot of them don't like listening to someone who looks like this. And so one of the last questions I was asked was, well, how do you prove to these people that you are, that you know what you're talking about? You're not going to like just drag them over to the old guy on the sales floor and make them feel comfortable. I'm like, well, I guess we smile, we talk professionally, and we just prove them wrong just by continuing to communicate and showing that we are the trained professionals. And that's the thing that really got me hooked, and it was taking ownership. Our COO, my friend Jason, we're all kind of it's a proper family situation, right? Like, I've been in this whole time, and the ownership and the leadership's been the same. The C-suite execs and all that. He has a phrase he likes to use: extreme ownership of your area. And so you give a 17-year-old the opportunity to work in such an incredible world, and you give, and it's a very humbling experience doing that as well, where you get somebody who has just had a break-in or has a domestic partner that's been threatening their life, and they come to you at age 17 and they say, I need to feel safe, and I want to be safe as I do it. Can you help me set up with the right tools, the right equipment, the right security settings, the right courses? I want to do it all, and I'm trusting you to get me through that. So it's a very humbling experience, and I took it very, very, very seriously, because at the end of the day, I liked sleeping well at night, and I wasn't commission-based, so I wanted to give them the proper equipment without overcharging them and getting them everything they needed. So extreme ownership has always drawn me back into it, because that was like, this is your house. You make it as you will. You prove that this is your home every day. So I worked sales. I worked, my badge said 007 because, they overindulged me there. But I was sales, range check-in. We have a Milo simulator, think like Die Another Day, except instead of the glasses, it's just a little clock with a laser diode, and the whole screen, the wall's a screen. It's pretty cool. We have the classroom. We actually have a full service boutique. We had a full service cafe when we first opened. I've touched every single piece of the house. And so now I am working on I'm on the marketing team. I'm jobbing into a full-time marketing role. We're growing like crazy. So right now I'm kind of wearing 6 hats to fill the roles that are necessary until we can start doling out responsibilities. So I'm marketing, customer service, memberships, and special events currently. So I call my job title licensed troubleshooter. I mean, that's just the Thunderball reference every day, but it really does feel like it, but I love it. I wouldn't take anything back. And it's been a really, really cool experience, kind of taking a brand that I truly believe in and a mission that really is my why as an individual, and being able to stay within it. That's why it's been so hard to leave, because I really do believe in the mission of the company, and that's what makes the channel so exciting too. Because it's really taking that why of bringing responsibility and comfort and knowledge to people who maybe don't know it. The Bond community is a very international community, and a lot of folks don't have the opportunities to handle or engage with what I do every day and what I feel is perfectly normal. And so you kind of have to disassociate that. And that's why I love talking about firearms through the lens of pop culture. It makes it so much more comfortable to do. I've introduced so many new shooters to the world of firearms with the AR-7, the folding sniper's rifle, right? Because I'm like assembling it and talking to them, like, yeah, this was in From Russia with Love. It's super cool. And the stress just starts to melt away when they see that kind of thing happen, instead of like, here's my gun, shoot it. So there's a reason, there's a why as to the channel, and that's really is bringing that mission into the international community, help normalize and create a conversation and communication that doesn't just start and end with fear.
My mind has just been blown by that. That was pretty amazing. That is very, very interesting to me. It's weird. When I was growing up in England, I came from like a background that we weren't into. I'm the worst Brit ever. I can't stand soccer and I don't drink tea. But I was like from the set that did do target shooting, and we had a shotgun on the farm and stuff like that. And so I've always been into guns, and the thing that I really liked about chatting to you was all of the history and stuff. I love like the Vietnam War era guns and all of the history that's attached to them. I think I have like a fake Mauser here.
Yeah.
That was there because I was so interesting to learn about like the history of semi-automatic weapons. And then I loved your account where you had like the Walther PPK, and it was like an actual historic old gun, and then you're restoring the PP right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I just was gifted a chrome-plated Walther PP, and it was supposedly a non-functioning shape. It looks all right. I just need to get a magazine for it, and we'll get some troubleshooting going on it. But it looks to be in great condition, so that's pretty cool.
But I love the way you do. Not only is it like the new guns that you're into and things like that, but you really like the older guns and the history that goes into them and things like that. All of the stuff you were telling me. So tell me about the PPK project, like everything about that gun in particular, because I found that really fascinating. Where you got it, like how everything went. Just tell me the whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was one of those decisions where it was like, I'm totally going to regret this, but totally be thankful that I did it. So I was sitting in the School of Business. I was studying for a midterm, I believe. And all of my friends were sitting around the circular table, and I'm not studying. I'm on Gunbroker, which is like an eBay for firearms that connects you to a seller, and then they ship it to your FFL. So me, since I work at an FFL, I'll just ship to my store, all that jazz, right? So I'm shopping, and I was always shopping, and I'm always shopping for, or was at the time, a 7.65 PPK, a 32 auto Walther, because they're impossible to find. And well, when I say impossible to find, they're impossible to find at a reasonable price point. They're collector's pieces. The 32 auto, especially the older models, they usually go for anywhere between $1,500 plus dollars. Broke college student, wanted a gun. My store had a gunsmith, so I wasn't afraid of like best one in the industry. He's actually the gentleman who gifted me that Walther PP. Stu Clark, yes sir. Yes. He is an incredible gentleman. I've learned so much from him over the years. And one of the things that I really enjoyed was working with him. And I was like, you know what? I can figure this out, and I can work with Stu, and we can make this magic happen. Simple as that. So what I did was I bought it. I shouldn't have, right? I'm like bidding on it during this while I'm studying, and I'm like, ooh, it's kind of getting up there. Now I got a gun for like $500. So I got something that I was like, okay, this is going to save me a lot of money in the long term, because I'm going to get it for a lot less, and then I'm just going to sit on it, and I'll start collecting the parts here and there. And that's exactly what I did. That was like sophomore year of college. I did that. Sorry, my fiance is calling me. Sophomore year of college, I buy it and sit on it for 2 years because I receive it. It's not in the condition it was claimed to be. The barrel was blown out, and in the PPK, they're fused to the frame. So most of your handguns, the barrel floats and you can just swap it out. That's easy. But this is actually pressed into the frame, and supposedly like one gunsmith in the country could do it. He had the right tools. They're called Earl's Repair Shop. He's one of the Walther he was a distributor for Walther in the early days. So he had the right tools, but he wanted like $300 to tap a pin, heat up a barrel, tap it out, swap it out. I wasn't going to pay that. So I bought the barrel and I kind of just waited. And happenstance, I start working at my other job, and I start working there, and there's a mechanic there who's a great friend of mine, loves firearms, and he's like, I hand fit engines. And I did it for a very long time where I had to drop parts in liquid nitrogen or heat them up and drop them in by hand. He was doing all the pieces of the engine like that. He's like, I can do that. We can get that barrel. Do you feel comfortable with me doing it? I'm like, well, mate, it's been sitting in my bag for 2 years. But literally, the gun came in like the most disheveled, like cardboard box, and it had all these miscellaneous parts in a Napa Auto Parts bag, and they weren't even for the gun. Like, the guy literally must have just taken the side of his desk and just slapped a bunch of pieces into a bag. So, like the first 2 years with this gun, I felt like while I was not working on it, I was getting all the surface rust off the gun, getting it all out of the inside, scrubbing it. So I kept it at a buddy's apartment off campus. And if we were over there watching a movie, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a rag out and cleaning solvent, and I was scrubbing all the pieces and getting all the parts out. I had an Excel spreadsheet where I was tracking the parts that I actually had, and I was trying to figure out which ones I needed. So it was a lot of process there, right? So anyway, back to the barrel. He drops it in. It took him 2 tries. So that kickstarted everything. So once the barrel got flipped, and that was a few months back, I went on the spending spree. I got all the extra parts, which ended up being like only another $250 through different places. I had to go to eBay. I had to go directly to Walther. I had to go through, there's a whole website dedicated to out of production gun parts. So I was picking them up from there, secondhand and stuff. So I got everything together, and then the frame was also compressed in. So this thing looked like it had been freaking run over, dude. The barrel had been done up, and the frame was compressed. There was micro fractures on it, all sorts of things. So I ended up having to put it in a vise, and it was a lot of hand fitting of parts because I was getting parts that supposedly shouldn't have worked. Like the cocking piece on the back is off of a brand new Walther assembly line, so it's meant for like a brand new PPK. I hand fitted it, just a little bit of sanding. It drops right in there perfectly, which I think is really cool that a gun that was made in 1942 has a brother that was completely rebuilt from the ground up in order to get a U.S. patent. And that part happens to perfectly drop into that same gun.
That is pretty incredible.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, I have a Jeep, right? And like 97 to 06, if I buy anything outside of that range, I'm SOL. So to me, that's a really cool thing that it's the exact same thing, essentially. So a little bit of hand fitting. I mean, I had 3 hours one day where I had that gun in a vise at an angle because it wouldn't take a magazine because of the compression in the frame. And I was marking the magazine with a Sharpie, dropping it in, figuring out where it was stopping, heating the frame, bending it out, hitting it with the file, dropping it in, remarking, dropping it in, remarking. About 3 hours later, I could get a magazine to seat perfectly. So the thing works, and it's really exciting. I finally got it functioning, and I thought it was the coolest day ever when I actually got to shoot the thing and had a palm-sized group or fist-sized group of 21 feet just out of the gate. I mean, it's the cleanest shooting gun, and it's so cool.
I love that. I love that entire story. I'm super into cars, so I like fixing up. It's funny you're talking about that. I used to have a Lincoln Town Car, and it's like from 1970 to 2003, it was basically the same car, which is not even the same with that. But then you put that into a Walther perspective, and isn't that incredible that apart from this day and age can fit into a gun from 1942? And what a year, 1942. That was the year that Ian Fleming went to Jamaica for the first time, I believe.
Yeah, and it's also the year that James Bond and in the novels, I believe, joins the Navy. So I found that connection inside of that as well. So there's a couple Bond connections in there.
That's really interesting. So, okay, moving tacks completely, I made you switch off a call from your fiancée because, you know, that's the way we men roll. But I was just talking about it. One of the things that I find interesting, my job is I'm a romance novelist. So I write romance novels all the time. And the thing that I find really interesting, and actually I'm writing some books now that are kind of like espionage thrillers based off this, is even though James Bond has a philandering reputation, and, you know, there's a different Bond girl in every movie, that's part of the staple, most of the people within the Bond community that I've met are people who, like, are monogamous, are romantic, married, family people, you know, it's really interesting to me that actually seems like almost like a unifying part of the Bond community, is the fact that actually we're all old-fashioned romantics in heart and fall for one people. So tell me about like your fiance Em and how you met, and how like, yeah, surely meeting a young James Bond must have been quite a appealing thing for her.
Actually, the exact opposite, bro. We went to high school together. Okay, so I mean, we had freshman homeroom together, and she had gone to like Catholic school up until then. She came to my public school that I was K through 12 at. We had freshman homeroom, and I thought I knew everybody. I mean, we had like 4 elementary school, or like 7 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, or whatever. And so, but even still, we had kind of all blended. And so I'd been K through 12 in the same district, and I pretty much knew most of the faces, right? And I didn't recognize her, and I'm like, okay. So I spent freshman year trying to figure out the name. Sophomore year, we started just becoming somewhat friendly, and then so we had the same homeroom all 4 years. Junior year, I attempted to date her. Senior year, I attempted to date her. There was, I call it contract negotiations. We had about 2.5 years of this where it was like, perhaps we could just be friends because you look like a baby, and I'm not really sure. You seem like a lot. To college, where we actually started dating, like October.
So you both went to the same college as well?
Yeah, and that was completely by accident. I applied to one school. They had a debate program, and I got to go there, like, and do scholarship and all that, which was it was a huge blessing to have that in my life. I'd been doing debate since I was in 7th grade, so it was really cool to be able to continue doing that. And she had no desire to go there. In fact, she had like 3 other schools she was keen on going to, and this and that. And I was like somewhat prodding her to do it, because we were friends senior year. And I finally stopped talking about it. And at the end of the day, the price point won. And she's like, okay, yeah, you're right. The school we went to, Truman State's, won like best value for like a liberal arts school the past like 25 years in most journals or whatever. So it's a reasonably priced school, though it's given a high praise or prestige or whatever. Not that I put much stock in that kind of thing, but in any case, the price point ended up winning over, and so she ended up going to my school. And so that was a huge win on my part, I must say. I did not expect that to happen. So in terms of like awesome timing all the way through, it's been really, really cool. But yeah, we didn't start dating until October 30th of our freshman year at college, which is weird when I think about it, because I can't really think about what like just interacting, because it's 4 years of college plus this past year being engaged and her being in grad school. And I dip back over, she's up there still, so about every other weekend I'm driving up there, visiting, staying with friends and all that. It's weird saying that like we didn't date at one point, because it feels like it's been like forever, right? It feels like a whole lifetime ago that other things were happening.
That's so interesting. And I mean, in terms of, okay, so getting all romance novelty with it, it's like, so when did you fall in love with Em?
Yeah, so I remember telling, and she doesn't believe me because she knows I'm a hopeless romantic and all that nonsense. My best friend, who's the best man in our wedding, like junior year of high school, I'm like, I'm gonna marry this girl. Like, yeah, she's the one. And you know what? If you want tying in the Bond connection, because this is truly it. We had like a government class in high school together, and that's where we saw each other mostly. And there was like a lunch block in it, so we really, it was like an hour and a half where we just saw each other every day. And she would swap books with me. So she would read Moonraker, and I would read a Jodi Picoult. Like we were swapping novels that year. I'm like, okay, this woman's reading the Bond books with me, and she's actually like giving me notes on it. She's like listening to music with me. We're engaging and chatting, and it's great. But
yeah, I was going to say, Jodi Picoult is a good. You could have had Stephanie Meyer.
Yes, I'm very, very thankful. I actually really enjoyed the books that I was given. I enjoy good storytelling. She built very compelling characters, like pretty interesting books too. We read like is it 19 Minutes, the one about like
oh my god,
shooters and things. That's such an insane book. I mean, I still get chills when I open it, even though I know what happens cover to cover. It's one of those that just captures you every single time, and it really hasn't aged poorly because it's such a powerful part of any conversation today, even. So yeah, it was cool because we just connected on every level. I remember my phone could not keep a charge because every 15 seconds a text was coming in and I was sending one out, like nonstop. She wouldn't talk to me in person because that was too much, but she would text me and we would chat and we would chat and we would chat and we would chat. So I really just kind of, it felt right, and it just kind of locked in, and so it was really, really cool.
And it's when you like look at all the James Bond movies and stuff like that, and you see his philandering ways. What are your thoughts about that? It's so weird how Casino Royale is one of the movies in particular that like everybody loves, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service is like my favorite, and a lot of people like that the same. Why is it, do you think, that there's like James Bond is a philanderer, but the when he falls in love resonates so much with people?
I think it's because it's kind of like we know that it's just like the filling of a void, right? Like, you know, he's a scarred character. Like, that's the whole point of Bond, is he's an imperfect individual. That's why we don't bring everything, you know, to your point there. Like, why isn't everyone in the Bond community living that? Because we don't all need to be, no one wants to be that way to most degrees or most respects. Even if you choose to live that way or are incredibly apathetic about such things, at the end of the day, like, that sense of belonging and community is what everyone really yearns for, right? So I would argue that's kind of why I really love like the From Russia with Loves, or the, like you mentioned, OHMSS or Casino, or that's why I love Thunderball, because that really doesn't crop up a whole lot. Like it doesn't. That's why I love the book Moonraker as much as I do, because he doesn't have to get the girl for it to be such a good story. Like, it really actually created a better impact moment for me that didn't happen. So yeah, to me, it's really about the fact that, you know, he's a broken individual, and you just want to see that individual that you're kind of living and emulating be happy. So yeah, you want to see the guy win. You want to see him do Casino, and you want to see that victory, even though it ends in tragedy, right? It's the real emotion that does exist that I think is most powerful.
So how does M feel about your Bond hobby?
Well, I'll tell you that we have a rule. It's called the Emma rule. The Emma rule is as follows: I do not talk James Bond or guns unless someone is dumb enough to engage me in conversation about either, because I just will prattle on nonstop about it. So I don't mean to. It's just, you know, it's, especially now that I've blended both, like, it's really what I wake up thinking about, fall asleep thinking about. It's literally what I'm like I started a blog, and I really need to get back on it now that I have Wi-Fi starting today, which is awesome. You know, I'll work all day, and I'll come home, and it's like 11:30, and I'm like, I really need to write. So I'll burn out a 1,500 word blog about a holster used in one movie and post it up, right? It's just, it's what's always existing here, and it's what I'm really passionate about talking about. It's my personal why blended with one of my favorite hobbies. So she enjoys it, and she tolerates it well more than she should, and I appreciate her all the more for it.
I love that. It's funny because you have a specific angle as well with guns. Because I one of my like favorite members of the Bond community, who I leaned on a lot. I call him like my original Major Boothroyd was the Bond Armory, Ray, who's just like
Ray,
awesome guy, and he has the Bond Armory, and then you have Commando Bond, which is almost like it's a separate animal. You guys like complement each other so well. You've always gone for like the commando angle. And I love like you always posting the videos of you on the range with is it the M4?
It's the AR-18, right? It's the one you see in Tomorrow Never Dies. It's a similar platform made by the same guy, slightly different.
And with the Commander holster and stuff. So what is it about Commander Bond? What made you like pick that as your thing?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like, the sartorial side of Bond was always something that really connected with me, but I grew up in that tactical kind of firearm community. Like, my dad's a hunter, so I grew up on that side, right? So I grew up walking through fields with him, or deer hunting and spending 16 hours a day in a stand or whatever. But my best friend's dad growing up was a captain at the local law enforcement agency. And he also owned his own active shooter training response company. So I actually spent a lot of time as the intern, i.e. like 15-year-old Caleb cleaning every single gun that was used at a simunition range or anything like that. I grew up in that world as well, and it always intrigued me, kind of blending the two. And I really do feel like the thing that I was missing out of like the Bond conversation was, sure, I mean, he has the guns and he has like the clothes and stuff, but where does that all combine where you can sartorially dress in like a 2 or 3 piece suit comfortably, and also blend in your concealed carry options? And from especially from like a selling standpoint, that was something I always had to talk to people about, was like, how do you carry in business casual or business professional without being obtrusive and stuff like that? So that was already kind of something that I enjoyed talking about. But I think the reason why I named the channel what it was is those No Time to Die posters where you saw that actual like commando sweater and that kit. It harkened back to everything I just talked about with like the 40s and the 50s and like the old school OSS and SOE and like that angle of things where you're taking like sartorial Bond looks and aesthetics and really like what makes him unique and blending it over with like functional tactical apparel where you're not dressing in like pure 511 and you're looking like a tactical LEO kind of guy. You're looking like James Bond, but you're also creating function out of that form. So that was really what kind of created the jump off point. EDC and stuff was always a big deal for me. I mean, that's what I sell and that's what I always communicate with people is like how you build your own everyday carry, what kit works well with it. And I work the Bond angle into it every day at work. Well, because we have a rental fleet and I get to access it for free. Good Lord. So
she doesn't even know me and she's going to hate me because.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I could always touch the Glocks and the whatevers because they were in my rental fleet. I could shoot them all the time. Like, but I want the Bond guns. I want the ones that matter to me and that I can play with and I wouldn't get otherwise. So that's why I started collecting them. And then, it's fun to share that stuff, right? Like, no one wants to collect things, not to tell other people about it. So it's fun to engage with people about it and spark conversation around it as well.
And it's so weird how like the Bond community it has such a like wide, expansive reach. For me, I came from like a certain background in England where like I did target shooting, we had guns and stuff, which isn't normal. It's so interesting to me. Like you live in a part of America where like carrying guns is completely normal. There are so many people in the Bond community who like have no exposure to that. What do you? Have you ever like had any interactions with Bond community members from a completely different side of the world or something like that? Who I don't know. I just want to say it's like what is their opinion of what you've been putting out being about? Because I find it really interesting. To me, what you put out is a really interesting window into the world of guns and things like that people like in the UK don't get at all any exposure to. So like I don't know.
It's the positive professional. That's what I kind of call the way I handle it. I've had a couple negative interactions, I would say, where folks kind of took it on the polarized political side, and I keep that out of what I do because I don't. That's not the point of the channel. Like I said, it's if anything, it's building awareness and comfort around safety, responsibility, understanding, and being a part of that conversation because it does exist and it is a part of the Bond world and it's a part of the world in general, and hiding from things doesn't do anything except make you more concerned about it. Fear of the unknown is truly the greatest fear of all. So I'm always smiling. I'm always trying to be my best foot forward, and just kind of like getting people engaged with it in a positive way. And so most of the time when I communicate with people, it's very positive. We have great conversations. And it's been really cool too, because I can actually see what's happening, which is my hope, where I kind of normalize stuff like that. I've got folks that follow me up in like Canada, for instance, who started, they bought themselves like a pocket knife or multi-tool that they now keep in their backpacks. So like, yeah, you're right, because what I always tell people when they ask me like, well, what gives you the justification, or why is this what you do, or why is that acceptable to you? And I always tell people, well, at the end of the day, when I walk out the door, my life is my most valued asset. And that's why I started the hashtag Back in One Piece 007. Bond gets his kit every single day from Q with the intention of returning back safely in one piece. And whether it's putting your seatbelt on every day or keeping a pen in your backpack because it's what you need, deciding on what that kit is and what you want to put your life in whose hands you want to put your life into, that's really what that's all about. And so I try to approach it from that. Like, I understand the fear, I understand the concern, because I bring people into the world of firearms every day. My company specializes in non-traditional shooters. We're women-owned and operated, and most of my clients have never touched, handled, or operated a firearm before in their lives, and they want to get started. And they're afraid. It's like they're whispering about it. Like, is this acceptable? I'm like, yeah, it's on a piece of paper that we have enshrined in Congress. Like, it's perfectly acceptable. Let's talk about being safe with it, yeah? And so, it's really important to me to bring people in like that. And I think that's why I have comfortable and positive conversations with people all around the globe 99.99% of the time, because that's authentically how I feel. I'm not trying to work some angle or, be combative. I want to educate. I want to let people know that it's okay. And like driving your car every day, you got to make a choice. And if you feel comfortable with it, great.
I find that really interesting. It's like my father always carried a pocket knife, so I've always carried a pocket knife. It's like it's $3 one from Pet Boys or something. In England now, if I returned there, this would be illegal. Like I could be arrested for carrying it. It seems it's such an interesting way. Like the world has changed in a very short space of time, and then places have changed differently. But I'm going to completely change tacts from all of that, because we're going down a completely different rabbit hole. So what I love about what you were saying just then, it shows that you have a lot of integrity behind sort of what you stand for and stuff like that, and also you are clearly a lover of books. So two very cool values that you have. Where did you get those from? Like, tell me about your what made you become somebody who had integrity and also read books?
It's a dangerous track you're putting me down. You're giving me way too much, again, generous conversation there. I definitely say, like, my dad was really big on the personal responsibility too, right? And I think where we talk about like the extreme ownership thing, where I talk about where I feel like I should take extreme ownership of the situation. He was always when you walk out of the house, you represent every single person in that family, and you represent this name. And when you do that, you represent us the best foot forward. You always treat it with proper respect, dignity. You never do it halfway. You do it properly. So yeah, that really, really spun me down there. And it's made me really, it's the most important thing to me is ethically displaying myself and actually being proper, because that's the right thing to do. And I would definitely put that in his camp every day of the week. The reading side, my mom's a teacher, and she had me reading when I was like in kindergarten. I was crushing like the Goosebumps books or something. Like I got started really young, and that's the other reason I love Bond, is I love storytelling and I love good characters, and that was something I really picked up from an early age. I mean, I grew up in kind of really, we talked the renaissance of like PlayStation 2 video games and James Bond. I grew up in like young adult fiction renaissance. I don't think it's going to ever be as good as it was. And it certainly was, I mean, it was phenomenal. That was Harry Potter. That was Rick Riordan. I mean, you just talk about storytelling in general. I grew up on like Bruce Timm and Paul Dini writing Batman the Animated Series and winning like 15 daytime Emmys. And that was the show I grew up on. So quality storytelling, character development, and like intrigue have always kind of been driving forces, whether it's TV, these are video games.
I find that really interesting, Joe. I had like Rick's books just here. I've got Harry Potter books all over the place, because that was a really special time.
But yeah, Horowitz, right?
Yeah, that was when his first books came out, and Charlie Hickson wrote the Young Bond books around that time as well. I don't know if you've ever read those, but those.
Oh yeah, I remember like my 4th grade book fair. I picked up Silverfin when it first came out. I actually the Scholastic exclusive edition of it still, where like they were only selling it to schools. So yeah, I mean, you're speaking my language, yeah. And that's what. It's funny. I went back and reread the Horowitz novels again the other day. I started buying them, and it was kind of crazy. Where you really start seeing those Bond connections and start appreciating them all the more. I didn't notice them when I was like 12 or 15. It was just like, okay, cool. This is like a spy thing, but it's not, because the character hates it, and it's this really unique conversation. He's my age, so it feels completely out of this world, but also very in my world at the same time. So, I mean, yeah, whether it was Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or Alex Rider, it didn't really matter. You just had so many different places. Or one of my favorite book series of all time that I just reread for the millionth time and still holds up is like the Rangers Apprentice series. Phenomenal book, same kind of storytelling. And it's just, I mean, really, every day there was a new series that you could pick up and just explore. And yeah, it made it really, really easy to love what was coming out, because there was always something new. I remember like waiting in line for the last Harry Potter book at like a Borders. RIP to those, because they are now all gone. The one in my town is now an Ulta Beauty, and it is my least favorite building in the city, because it used to be my favorite bookstore.
It's funny. Our Barnes and Noble ended up being an Ulta Beauty as well. The next thing I was going to say was talking about that place where you live. It's so funny, Kansas. I always feel that there are certain places that you're destined to go to, and to me, Kansas City is one of them. I got even in my novels that I write, there's a character who is from Kansas City, and so like I'm gonna go and hang out with you at some point. I'm gonna go for cocktails and things. What is it like?
Absolutely.
What is it like living in Kansas City, and how is it being a 23-year-old James Bond in Kansas City? What is Kansas City like? Where do you go? Where do you hang out? Where do you live the Bond lifestyle there?
Yeah, the city's awesome. What I really love about Kansas City is it's less of like, it's a smaller city, right? So you kind of know it as a smaller city, but what makes it kind of cool is you have the metro and the surrounding area. So I live right now where I live. I'm 22 minutes from the city, like downtown proper, but I'm still a Kansas Cityan, and we say that. And the metro exists in like an hour bubble around the city. So there's so many cool things to do, but it's like having that city in your backyard where you get to go enjoy like the entrapments of urban living and like all the unique things that could exist there. But then you kind of get to take a step back and enjoy. Like I grew up in a neighborhood and there was like a lake, so I would walk the lake every night, or I'd go kayaking, or I'd go canoeing, or I could go hunting. I had 10 acres of property 15 minutes from my house, and yet the city's 45 minutes away. So it was kind of cool where you get to live both like aesthetics, which I really, really enjoy, because I love the outdoors. I love going out and just doing stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of places that I go, most of the time I go to there's an indoor place which is very spectacular if you're into like 80s and 70s music. It's like the least Bond place you could ever go, but it's the most fun ever. It's called Funky Town. Okay, I'm gonna make this pitch, and it's ridiculous.
I'm writing this down. We're gonna go to Funky Town.
Dude, it's like Walmart had a last call. Like that's the kind of people you hang out with in there. But there's like a VW bus parked on the side, and it serves drinks and tacos. There's a car wash built onto the dance floor, and they play Working at the Car Wash, and the whole bloody thing comes out and starts raining. They have a dinner menu that serves appetizers, and I mean, it's a cash-only bar, so it's like the most tax-evading place you've ever seen in your life. You wouldn't want to take a black light to it. It's the place to be. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, Emma and I enjoy. We have a lot of friends that live out of city. They live in like St. Louis, so that's the place we take them, because it's kind of it's this unique situation that you don't get to experience anywhere else, right? But there's all sorts of really cool like hidey hole bars and places to get cocktails. There's a great Irish pub right in the heart of the Power and Light District, which is kind of like the party area in Kansas City. So there's like this huge outdoor party venue that all these bars, they basically have a block where they built all these buildings around it, and it's all closed off, so you can all congregate outdoors, and there's actually cover just to get into that area. But you can get into the bars from the front side. There's one called the Dubliner. That's actually where we had, after I proposed at Union Station, we rode the streetcar down, and we met her family and my family were both there, and we had like a combined dinner with everyone to celebrate.
I actually remember that Instagram post.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And then just outside, I had all of our friends drive in from out of town, and we surprised her. So there was 3 surprises: proposed, family for dinner, and then cocktails with all of our friends. So we had about 20 people that just came out of nowhere, came out from all the woodworks, from Kansas City, from St. Louis, wherever, and we got to celebrate there. And that's still one of my favorite like bars. And I mean, I've had Sazerac there, I've had Negronis there, I've had Vespers there. They've got a proper stocked bar. So that's why I enjoy going there. So there's all sorts of really cool places. There's in the downtown area where I live, there's a neat little place just called W, and it's one of those oversold, like speakeasy kind of places, right? I've been there once or twice, and it's the smoked vodka and all that, big leather-bound chairs. It's fun. So there's plenty of places to live that, but really, I mostly just bring it into what I do every day. I carry a briefcase with a broken down AR. I got the shoulder rig or the AIWB. I just enjoy it and just kind of live the monotony of daily life through the lens of something a little more exciting.
Well, it's funny you say that, and then the nice thing is you managed to do all that. Like right now, you're in a perfect Bond outfit, and stuff, but also you managed to do it in a way that doesn't require like the budget to buy every shirt from Oliver Brown and things like that, which the items that I have from the sort of Bond sartorial collection are fantastic, but they're not necessarily something that you and I can afford to wear every day, yet you still manage to have that Bond aesthetic going. I mean, talk about watches, like you and I pretty much wear the same watch, don't we?
Yeah, I've got a Beluga Marine Star, which I think is pretty much just a slightly newer model of what your beaten up piece is per our conversations.
I'm not going to lie, my piece is so beaten up now that the kind of hour hand isn't keeping up with the... So I'm able to tell you exactly what minute it is, but not what hour. It's like going to be an hour before it, so I might have
it exists within, yeah, you're close.
Yeah, but it's a good choice. But yeah, you always manage to be able to bring the Bond look off in a way that is like achievable for regular people.
Well, I mean, I was a broke college student when I started collecting all the pieces, so I had no choice. eBay was my best friend. I really got into like senior year of high school. I got to visit New York City, and when I did, we were on Times Square, and it was at night, and it just started pouring rain out of nowhere. And so I ducked into the Charles Twitt there. They have one on Times Square, which is lovely. It had like all the mahogany wood, the big leather bound chairs, all the suits. There was a beautiful like Glen Check one, and there was a chalk line, and Kingsman had just come out, and so I saw both of those, and I'm like, oh my god, those are so cool right now. And as I'm kind of just walking around, keeping out of the rain, very, 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 I mean, tastefully so, faintly, the Bond tune started playing. And I kind of just looked down and went, oh, fuck, I'm going to spend money here today. And ended up buying the Navy chalkline suit I still have today. I bought that senior year of high school, and it has held up phenomenally. And so that's kind of, I fell into love with that brand because they're a reasonable price point, great English clothier. So the shirts are phenomenal. That's most of what I wear. The polos and stuff are like J. Crew Factory. But yeah, I mean, most of what I buy has been like pick it up on eBay and then take it in to get it fitted, or J. Crew Factory has an ultra sale or whatever, and I just kind of start collecting the pieces thanks to amazing guys like Matt Spazer, who his blog does a phenomenal job of giving you all the concrete details you want when you start looking for stuff. And then you've got guys like Iconic Alternatives that do a perfect job of helping you source those pieces and kind of like helping you find which details are most important to you. So those two guys have been incredible assets in my life to kind of like build it in. Yeah, I'm ordering that book like tonight because I'm going on my honeymoon in 29 days, and that's coming with me because I need something to read.
Yeah, this is cracking. This is really good. I bought the hardback, and it's definitely.
Oh no, yeah, I couldn't do it anything else because that's going to be one that I thumb through a zillion times. So that's a hardcover book every day of the week, without a doubt.
Where are you going on honeymoon?
We're going to Jamaica.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect. No, we're going to be in Montego, not Kingston, but that just means GoldenEye's another trip for another day. But yeah, it was reasonably price point, lovely, all inclusive, and it's because of where we are in the Midwest too. It's 6 hours straight down to get there. So it's only a 6 hour flight, and we get to be in a completely different kind of place, which is amazing.
That's good. I love. Well, I've never actually been to Jamaica. My father grew up in Montego Bay. Oh, where is it? Do I have the Blackwell's rum over there? In fact, I'll tell you what. Hang on. I feel like since we're waving all these Bond accoutrements, I should be like, yes, I actually do have this, thanks to the culture of Bond.
Yeah, I need to. I'll be drinking it while I'm there. I've been biting the bullet because I don't have anyone in my area where I can do kind of what you guys do, where you're buying and as a conglomerate and eating the $30 shipping charge amongst 30 people or what have you. It's so hard to justify it for like 2 bottles for myself. It hurts right here.
Well, I'll tell you what. As I said, I am going down to Kansas City at some point, so I'll bring you a bottle or two.
But man, I will buy in on that. Happy as can be.
Excellent. Now we are nearly reaching the top of the hour. Oh, it has been. Oh my God, my computer's going nuts. Yes, it has been so awesome to speak to you, and hopefully this won't be the last time. But I was going to wrap it up with the hour thing. I was going to say, if people think you sound like a cool bloke, where are they going to find more stuff from you? There's your website and your Instagram. Tell me where they can go to find more Commando Bond.
You make it super easy. It's just www.commandobond.com, and it's just @CommandoBond on Instagram or Facebook. So either or, you can find me wherever.
Excellent. And what exciting new things do you have in the works for the future?
Yeah, well, the website is kind of new. Like I've got like maybe 8 posts on it right now. I've been doing long form writing for a while for work, so and I love, like I said, storytelling. So that's a big thing for me, and I'm getting into with my marketing role video. So as I'm being forced to do it for work, I might start justifying the skill learning and bringing it into the Commando Bond sphere. So we'll see. Once I feel like I've conquered building a website, maybe a YouTube's in the works.
Excellent. Well, we'll keep. We will. You'll have to keep us posted about that. Sorry.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, I'm gonna stop recording now. So don't immediately jump off because I'm gonna say like goodbye to you and stuff like that. But thank you so much, Caleb. It has been awesome to chat to you, and hopefully people who watch this will find it interesting. Well, they'll find your part interesting at least.
Well, I mean, I was going to say the other way around, but you're too kind. It's been bloody fun. I mean, I've been meaning to do this for, we've been playing catch up for 2 weeks. It's laying on the ground, but I built a bookshelf today because that's the last thing I have to unpack is like 6 boxes of books. I had nothing to put them in. So we bought, sourced, located, and built today whilst also getting the internet turned on. It's been exciting stuff.
Well, no, I love that. The fact that you need a bookshelf is a good sign. What is it John Walker said? If you go back to somebody's apartment and they don't have books, don't sleep with them.
It's a fair point to make. And
Anyway.
Emma's got 3 cases of her own, so it's exciting times. We've got probably going to overfill this bloody thing first round.
Excellent. Right, I'm going to stop recording now. Cheerio.